Is Typhoon Haishen here on Sunday morning across the southern Japanese islands, and I'm telling you, still looking at the satellite imagery here compared to a few days ago, it's a weaker storm, but it is still a potent storm, a Category 4 on the Safford-Simpson scale, now approaching the Amami Islands. Amami Oshima really going to take the brunt of this with this rain band right in here, that inner eye wall starting to wrap around, and that's going to bring some Category 3 to Category 4 strength winds. But I do want to note further down towards the south, we have been seeing some pretty decent winds across Okinawa Honto, and that's mainly because concentric eye walls have really set up over the course of the last 12 hours. You can see that inner eye wall right in here, the outer eye wall, and then this rain band even on top of that. That is giving us a very large wind field from this storm. So, of course, that inner eye wall, that's where you do have some of the highest winds, but I am seeing gusts out here upwards of about 50 to 60 miles per hour. Parts of Okinawa Honto further down here towards the south and west. So, like I've been mentioning for a few days now, this area is not going to get the core, but these rain bands that are wrapping through truly are bringing some pretty gusty winds, especially for areas northern in northern areas of the island. Pressure gradient is at its highest, but you can just see here on radar imagery that rain band wrapping through. And I know the last few hours has been pretty windy out there, but there's Amami Oshima, and this is another thing I really want to stress, and I'll get to this in just a minute, so stick around for that. Already seeing rain piling up across parts of Kagoshima and Miyazaki prefecture. That area really is going to be looking at upwards of 1,000 millimeters of total precipitation. I'll show you that graphic in a second. First, let's talk about Haishen. It is still a Category 4 storm system, just passed over the Daito Island. Saw a wind gust there of upwards of 115 miles per hour. Now the storm's tracking off towards the north and west. It will be passing over the Amami Islands here on your Sunday morning, passing just off the coast of Nagasaki and Kagoshima through Monday morning, and then heading into Tuesday morning, eventually into the DPRK. I got another rabbit hole I want to go down about the DPRK. Stick around to the end of this video. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Here's the rain totals from the GFS weather model, and this is the key thing. Okay, so you have the max amount of rain here, and it does pick up on a little bit of that building up of the mountains, but JMA is expecting upwards of 1,000 millimeters in isolated locations out here. That is very well possible. Like I said earlier in that radar imagery, we already have those rain bands wrapping around and impacting this area, and that is going to stay that way for a good 24 hours. Now, whenever we get impacts here in southern areas of Kyushu, as far as that continuous run-in of moisture on shore, a few things happen. One, there is a mountain range right in here. I've been talking about this for a few days. Also across Shikoku, pretty steep range right near the coast. This just runs into that, and it's basically like throwing a ball at a wall. It has to go somewhere, it stops, and it falls right to the ground. That's why these areas are looking at just a difficult amount of rain to comprehend. 1,000 millimeters, for those using the empirical system, that is upwards of 40 inches of rainfall. Yeah, oh, and on top of that, this is a lot of volcanic soil. The basalt in this area is prone to landslides. We see this quite often. We have landfalling storm systems. So it's a multitude of different impacts here, and why there has been evacuations. Shinkansens have been canceled all across Kyushu. Flights have been canceled from Kagoshima to Nagasaki, right in here to Sasebo, over there towards Fukuoka, northern areas of the island. Good news, northern areas of the island, as somebody asked me, they said they're out towards Kumamoto. Major issue there is going to be the rainfall. Further down towards the south, though, it's the wind and really the rain in Miyazaki and Kagoshima over towards Nagasaki as well. A few people say they like this part of my video, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through hour by hour the HWRF model here. After it pushed over the Daito Islands, like I said, 115 mile per hour winds were reported. 2,000 people live out there on Minami Daito. That's right there. It's probably hard to see, but it's there. And then we have Amami Oshima, northern areas of Okinawa, also looking at about 50 to 60 knot wind gusts at the very least as this starts to track off there throughout our morning. And eventually, you're going to be looking at the eye moving pretty much directly over northern areas of Amami Oshima before this eventually moves off there across southern areas of Kyushu. That's Kagoshima right in there. Big issue here is going to be the rainfall. Nagasaki is also going to be looking at some of that funneling coming up. Could even see some flooding, just thanks to that water being pushed on shore. And then eventually, like I've been saying all along, 80 to maybe 100 knot wind gusts possible along the immediate coastline of Busan there in South Korea. The good news and bad news, mountainous terrain out here. It will disrupt and shelter winds once you move further inland. quite a deal. This is just going to get disrupted and flown apart. And then eventually, by the time it gets off to the DPRK, the big issue is going to be the rainfall. If you take away nothing from my video, here is the main points. Amami Oshima really going to take the worst of these winds. Minami Daito probably did, but Oshima definitely is. Flooding rains across Kyushu, especially eastern areas of Kyushu. There is going to be significant flooding and possibility of landslides with this. Travel impacts in Kyushu as well, as far as things are concerned with the Shinkansen and air travel here. I do want to go back to the satellite picture here, though. I got two things I do want to talk about here. One, I have seen so many reports. This is the strongest storm that ever hit southern areas of Japan, and it is a dangerous, potent storm, but it's not quite there, and it is going to start to weaken as it moves towards the north. But I've seen one stronger than this in the southern Japanese islands for sure. By far a lot stronger than his Cat 5s and higher. But what's unusual is the amount of moisture and rain that's going to be taken with this moving into Kyushu. So if you feel like posting it's the strongest storm ever, I don't like those headlines, because when a storm does hit the southern Japanese islands, that is a full-on just madhouse of a storm, which this one is, but it's not up there. Right now it's not even a super typhoon. I say not even, but it's not a super typhoon. We've seen those before hit Okinawa directly. I mean, it's not the worst storm ever. I'll keep that in mind. The other thing I do want to note is I found this very interesting. The DPRK, a bunch of people got arrested because people died in North Korea from Miyazaki. So, check out this article from ABS-CBN I saw. And good old Kim Jong-un, punished a bunch of officials after his casualties. So if you think your government's response to storms is bad, could always be worse. This is the same guy who went into the main weather office in Pyongyang, straight up lectured a bunch of his lead forecasters following a very severe drought. So you can only wonder what's happening to them after this storm system. Very terrifying to think of. Anyways, what's really terrifying is our storm system here. Still a Category 4, a borderline Category 3. Going to be bringing some pretty rough weather. The winds in the southern Japanese islands for one, and the rain across Kyushu. And then eventually kind of a combination in Korea. So guys, stay safe. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. Let me know what you think about it. Really big thanks to a ton of new people watching these videos. I've been doing this for over 10 years, almost 12 years now since I first started making these YouTube videos. So it's been a hot second. But I really appreciate new people jumping on board and finally discovering I'm doing this. I was on TV for quite a long time. Now I'm working in operational meteorology. I still do this kind of as a hobby. So yeah, thanks for the support.